Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Board of Zoning Appeals monthly meeting. I'm Cecilia Espinoza, the chair of the Board of Zoning Appeals. The board is made up of 5 citizens appointed by the Circuit Court. In addition to myself, we have the vice chair, Monica Craven, who's sitting to my left. Next to her is Judy Freshman, and to my far right is Terry Russell. Mr. Charles Smith should be joining us as well. Also present tonight are our professional staff. That includes the Deputy Zoning Administrator and the Secretary to the Board, Andrew Noxon, who many of you probably know because I know he works very diligently with our citizens. We have Cheryl Williams. Can't believe it's been a while. She's been not with us for a while, so I spaced on her last name. Cheryl Williams with us this evening, who's working the slide projector, and our Zoning Administrator, Norma Cozart, is also present. We thank you again for being here and extend a warm welcome. To avoid disruptions, we ask that you please turn your cell phones or pagers off or put them in silent mode. The board's powers are prescribed by the Code of Virginia and are set out in further detail in the county's zoning ordinance adopted by the county board. The Board of Zoning Appeals does not have the power to rezone property or to amend the regulations set forth in the ordinance. That authority rests with the county board. What the board can do, and the authority the board has, is to do 3 things. We can approve use permits that allow modification of placement requirements for structures on 1- and 2-family lots where there is no option in the zoning ordinance to allow such modifications. We can grant variances from the specific requirements of the zoning ordinance, and we can decide appeals of decisions of the zoning administrator. When approving use permits, the Board of Zoning Appeals may impose conditions that it deems necessary in the public interest, including limiting the duration of the use permit or adding additional conditions such as foliage and trees on granting of the use permit. In order to approve a use permit, the board shall find that the proposal will not adversely affect the health or safety of persons residing in the neighborhood, that it will not be detrimental to the public welfare or injurious to property or improvements in the neighborhood, and that it will not be in conflict with the purposes of the master plans and land use and zoning related policies of the county. To do this, the BZA shall consider whether the modification will promote compatibility of development with the surrounding neighborhood because the structure's overall footprint, size, and placement are similar to the structures on the property surrounding the lot in question, and whether the modification will preserve natural landform, historical features, and/or significant trees and foliage. When granting variances, the board must determine that the strict application of the ordinance would produce undue hardship, that the hardship is not generally shared by other properties in the same zoning district, and that the authorization of the variance will not be of substantial detriment to adjacent property and that the character of the district will not be changed by the granting of a variance. A Virginia Supreme Court ruling requires that a variance cannot be granted unless the effect of the zoning ordinance as applied to the piece of property under consideration would, in the absence of a variance, interfere with all reasonable beneficial uses of the property when taken as a whole. This evening, cases are going to be called and a brief staff report and recommendation will be given. Following that, the board members will ask any recommendations, any questions of the staff that they may have. Next, applicants or their representative will be given the opportunity to make comments to support the application or appeal. If they choose to make a comment, they must come forward to the podium so their comments can be recorded for the record. Next, all speakers for an item will be called. Speakers must fill out a speaker slip, which is available on the table in the front of the room. After we hear from speakers for and against the proposal, the board may permit the applicant a brief opportunity to clarify any points. The board may ask questions of any speakers, but does not permit and will not condone any cross-examination or direct questioning from the podium. We have deemed the following time limits for speakers to be sufficient: 5 minutes for applicants for use permits and variances. For use permits and variances, we have deemed 3 minutes for representatives of organizations and 2 minutes for individuals as being sufficient. After the board has gathered all the information they need and discussed the case, it will decide the matter by voting on a motion duly made and seconded. A majority is needed to approve any motion. Any appeal from the decision of this board must be made to the circuit court in accordance with state law. On the front table, you will find copies of the staff report for each case before us this evening. I recommend that if you have not yet seen that report for your case, you get a copy and review it before your case is called. After your case of interest is heard, you are welcome to stay for the balance of the session, or you can leave at your convenience. Thank you for being here again this evening, and we'll go to Mr. Noxon to call our first case.
Thank you and good evening. Our first case tonight is case number V-10862-13-UP-2. This is a use permit request by Robin McMahon and Graham Bardsley to permit changes to a new one-story right-side garage addition that was approved by a previous use permit. This is for the construction of a new one-story right-side garage addition. This is in the R6 zoning district on a premises known as 5909 22nd Street North.
And the recommendation is to adopt the attached resolution approving the subject use permit with conditions. Any questions of staff? I guess we see the beginning of construction, Mr. Noxon. How did this come to our attention?
Right. It was actually brought to our attention by the applicants. Once they started construction, they wanted to make changes, and when they came in, we weren't able to approve the building permit.
So they had a pre-existing building permit, is that correct?
They did.
And then they found out that the changes required the use permit?
Exactly.
Okay, thank you. Any additional questions? Since there are no questions from my colleagues, are Robin McMahon or Graham Bardsley present? And I don't know if lighting there can be improved. It's kind of dark, but okay.
Essentially, we were looking to expand the size of our garage door. We realized that given the angle of the driveway, our age, and the difficulty of getting a car in and out of a garage, the pedestrian door was really not feasible because it created the small opening. So we did feel like we wanted a pedestrian door and we wanted to move it around to the side. There is one area of confusion, and I think it's probably our fault. There was a window, if you can see the picture, there was a companion window to the window that's been installed. That's the window to be removed, not the rear window, which was not indicated on the new plans, but that we do want to retain in the back of the house. Our neighbor, who is the only person that has a view of that side door, doesn't have a problem with it. Also noted on here was the ADA compliant ramp, which was on our initial plan. My parents moved in, which is what has sort of necessitated this garage. They're able to ambulate well and get up and down stairs at this present time. We're going to have a landing there, which is adaptable to a ramp at the time that we do need a ramp, and we probably will sometime in the future, but we don't need it right now. Those are the only changes.
Any questions of the applicants? Let's see. I guess, Mr. Knox, my only question is, given the statement of the applicants regarding the window, do we need to modify the resolution, or is that window on the plans that were submitted in support of this application?
The window on the rear, as well as the one on the right side, are shown on the plans. There was just a discrepancy in the originally submitted and approved plans that showed two windows on the floor plan, but not on the elevation drawing. But on the new plans, it shows just that one window.
Okay, so it would be in conformance with the resolution that we have. Any other clarifications or issues? If not, the chair would entertain a motion at this time.
Is it, I'm sorry, excuse me, is it possible to have a corrected drawing that shows the window? Because we actually would like to have it.
I thought Mr. Knoxon just said there
You
was.
want the second window
The second window in the back.
on the rear? Then we would need a corrected rear elevation drawing, as well as a floor plan.
Okay.
And does that affect our voting on this?
Well, I mean, the whole issue with this coming back to you was because there were different elevations and different drawings. So do you have one with you?
I think I have the one from December.
But the interior and everything else is completely different on that.
I could come back before the meeting's over with the corrected one.
Mr. Knoxon, would that be acceptable if we defer that? The only concern I have then is it does become a question of notice, because what becomes advertised versus what's approved. And generally, if we're taking something away, then there's not a problem. But when we're adding something, it could create a problem. That's why I wanted to make sure we had clarification, and especially because if we adopted the resolution as it's stated, it's based on what's in the packet, and it does not have that window.
Okay.
Does your architect have any plans drawn up that they could possibly email you and have you print?
I actually have so many copies of this at home. I probably included the wrong one when I was putting everything together.
So you do have one in your possession, though. Would we be able to table it to the end of the meeting if you all are able to get home and grab a copy?
Yep, we will.
You have a rear elevation that shows that window as well?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
That'll work.
Motion to table.
So moved.
And moved and seconded. Moved by Ms. Craven, seconded by Ms. Freshman. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay. 4 ayes, and it's tabled, and she's out the door anyway. Okay. Love Arlington. We all live so close, it's easy.
Okay. The next case is a carryover from last month. This is V-10916-14-UP-1. This is a use permit by Stacy Kavanaugh to permit a setback of 5.9 feet from the right side property line instead of 8 feet as required, and 18.8 feet from the 8th Street South right-of-way instead of 25 feet as required. Then also a setback of 5.3 feet to an existing rear deck from the rear property line instead of 25 feet is required. This all for a new front porch with steps and the replacement of the roof above an existing entry vestibule in the front, and also to maintain an existing rear detached deck in its current location. It's in the R6 zoning district on the premises known as 4033 8th Street South.
And the recommendation is to adopt the attached resolution approving the subject use permit with conditions. Any questions of staff? Seeing no questions at this time, is Stacy Kavanaugh present? Or I believe I may have a representative in that matter.
Hi, I'm Stacy Kavanaugh.
I'm John Hensley, the architect of the project.
John Hensley? All right. Yes, so we have the architect as well. And you are located, Mr. Hensley, at 1819 North Henderson Street, Arlington, Virginia?
That's my home address, yes.
Okay, thank you. Just need that for the record. Appreciate it. What can you tell us, or what do you want to share with us tonight about your project?
So what I'd like to present first is that I've gathered signatures from my neighbors in support of the keeping the back deck, which I did not realize was illegal. It was there at the time of purchase of the home. And as a result of the effort I've put forth with the architect to improve the house, we stumbled upon that reality. So in an earlier request, which is part of the packet, I also gathered some signatures with regard to the other variance requests involving the change of the front of the house and the expansion of the front deck with a roof. So I would only prevail upon your kindness to state that I'm really just trying to improve the house and you know, as it fits into the neighborhood, and enhance with the help of John Hensley and his other architects, sort of the integrity of what that the sort of the soul of the house is. And now I look forward to worrying about how to pay for it instead of worrying about how to deal with the variances. Well, I'm not sure to whom I might present the
Give them
6
to Ms.
copies.
Williams.
Okay.
She'll pass them down to us. Any questions of the applicant or her architect?
I just wanted to clarify, this is not a variance, it's a use permit.
Yeah.
And the statement of justification that talks about a variance talks about the hardship. With the use permit, we don't have to have a standard for a hardship the way you do the variance. So I just want to clarify that for anyone who might be confused.
And if Mr. Smith was here, he would say he loves front porches. It's sort of one of the standard things that is his statement,
Okay.
bringing neighborhoods together, and we understand that front porches do that. Will you be doing any upgrades to the deck, or just,
Yes, the plan is to remove the existing deck and rebuild it. The variance includes extending it slightly further out so that the stair runs perpendicular with the street, or perpendicular with the side entrance to the house. We'll also be constructing a roof over this porch, and one of the parts of the variances includes a screen wall to the side of the porch. It's not evident in this drawing, but the property to the right of this is about 15 feet taller, so really it's just a very, very steep hillside up to the neighbor's house. So we're sort of screening that hillside.
Okay, and you just raised a point that is often a question. What will you be enclosing and putting a roof over?
The front porch, correct?
Yes.
The rear deck's going to remain open as it is.
And how does that fit with our not built over or enclosed?
Sorry?
How does that fit with our not built over and enclosed requirement, Mr. Knoxon?
The rear one?
The front one.
Oh, the front one.
We specifically say in the resolution, the applicant agrees that the front porch and stairs shall not be built over or enclosed. Built over generally means adding above it, I understand.
Above a
additional
story or enclosing it to have walls under the roof. Mhm. So
So,
they're creating an open porch.
okay, I heard closing the porch, and so.
Prefer not getting rained on while I bring my groceries up, but that's.
You
all.
mean putting
Just putting that, but
shelter
leaving it
over the
open
top, yeah.
so my neighbors can greet me.
Just want to make sure we have that clear, and partly because we also want to know, you to know that what's in the resolution is what you have to build, and so to the extent that that's a condition and that you can't put walls up or otherwise enclose the porch, you're on notice of that.
Okay.
Anything further? If not, the chair would entertain a motion.
I move the Board of Zoning Appeals adopt the attached resolution granting use permit V-10916-14-UP1, subject to the conditions listed in the resolution.
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Freshman. It's seconded by Mr. Russell. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank
Good
you.
luck. Enjoy your porches.
Okay, our next case is also a carryover from last month. This is case number V-10919-14-UP-1. This is a use permit request by Mascara Mulatu for an aggregate side yard of 14.9 feet instead of 18 feet as required, and this is in order to permit the expansion of a two-story addition that was approved by a previous variance. It's in the R6 zoning district on a premises known as 4705 22nd Street North.
And the recommendation is to adopt the attached resolution approving the subject use permit with conditions. Any questions of staff on this request? Remember at this house? So has what we approved previously been built or not?
The addition in the back, you can kind of see it. I think we had a rear view a second ago.
I thought that we had just
There you
approved,
go.
though, enclosing that section there with the red brick. Wasn't that what we?
They want to enlarge that portion, bring it out to the edge.
Okay, so that has not been built yet.
That's right. What they're asking for has not been built. This was the one that was deferred from last month.
That's why it looks so familiar. Okay, seeing no additional questions from the staff, is Meskarem Olatu? Okay, what do you want to tell us about what you want to build?
I just want to say thank you for allowing me to speak today. Just a couple of background points. I bought the house in April of 1997, and the first variance was granted in 2003. And at that point, I was a single professional woman. I wanted a bigger kitchen and a bedroom upstairs. But since then, my family has quadrupled. I adopted my first daughter in 2007. And I just brought home 2 of my babies 3 months ago. So I would like to have this additional space to add a bathroom upstairs, to add a bedroom upstairs, and then to have a family room in that enclosed space that you saw. I made multiple attempts to reach out to my neighbors. On the week of April 2nd, I sent out self-addressed stamped envelopes with a request to the immediate neighbors. In addition, I sent out
a letter with a little image of the construction that I was going to do, showing exactly where the new addition was going to be. I made sure that I put my phone number, my email address, and other ways to reach me. I walked around the week of June 2nd and again the week of July, the week of July 11th, right, the last week. And as a result, I have gotten 4 of my immediate neighbors to agree to not oppose the building of the addition. I also sent a second letter with the form and a little photo of my expanded family to the neighbors. And I understand that there is one neighbor who has expressed an opposition, although I'm not exactly sure of the nature of the opposition. So I wanted to just say I'm more than happy to reach out to her and mitigate any of the problems or inconveniences that she thinks this might pose. I have made 4 attempts to reach her separately and have not been successful at all. She's quite an elderly woman and is not up and about in the neighborhood much, so I've made attempts to leave letters twice. I have made 2 phone calls and I have knocked on her door once, and I have not been able to get a response on any of these. The one time I did get a phone call, I did get her on the phone. We did not have a complete conversation. So I want to say that I'm ready to work with her if there is a specific concern related to this construction, but that it's really important for my family to be able to have more space.
Just checking that we don't have any speakers, and I don't believe we do.
I have my contractor here if there are any technical questions, but I think the recommendation was to speak on behalf, to speak about neighbors and their reaction to the construction.
Yeah, I think the drawings give us an idea about what you're doing, so that's all right. I don't know, do we need any technical information? No. If not, we won't need him to sign a speaker slip or speak. No other questions? The chair would entertain a motion.
I move the Board of Zoning Appeals adopt the attached resolution granting use permit V-10919-14-UP1, subject to the conditions listed in the resolution.
Second.
I'll take Mr. Russell's again, moved by Ms. Freshman, seconded by Mr. Russell. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much.
Granted, thank you.
All right, the next case is also another carryover case from last month. This is V-10737-12-UP-2. This is a use permit request by Brett Bibelheimer to permit a setback of 3.9 feet to the garage addition, 4.2 feet to the eave, and 5.4 feet to the wall of a new 2-story addition from the right side property line instead of 10 feet as required, and also a setback of 16 feet from the 17th Street North right-of-way instead of 25 feet as required. Also an aggregate side yard of 11.3 feet instead of 18 feet as required. This is for a new 2-story addition with a basement-level garage and a new front stairway. It's in the R6 zoning district on a premises known as 3187 17th Street North. I'd like to add that the stairway is no longer needed to be advertised, as you all have the ordinance amendment that went through. Steps can be located 5 feet from the street right-of-way.
Right.
So we no longer need the approval for the stairway.
And the recommendation is to adopt the attached resolution approving the subject use permit for a setback of 4.2 feet to the eave and 5.4 feet to the wall of the 2-story right side addition and garage with conditions. And the alternative resolution has been provided should the BZA wish to grant the use permit as it was advertised.
Question?
Yeah, questions of staff?
Yes. I got a little lost, I admit, in trying to figure out the elevation in the garage. It seems to be shifting, and I'm just not clear. Is it now going to be not depressed? Is it going to be flush? Could you give
It's
me a
not
quick...
completely underground anymore.
Okay.
Let They point you to the right drawing, you'll kind of get a better idea of it. Before, they had it completely underground except for the entrance to it. That was the only point where you could actually see it. Now, if you look at their drawing 8-2.2,
Is it this? Oh, yeah, okay.
right side elevation drawing, east side elevation.
Okay.
If you see by that double door towards the middle of it, there's a little portion of the garage, there's a foundation line, then you see it's about 2 feet up in the air.
Right.
That's the only portion of the garage that is going to be closer to the property line than the rest of the addition.
And what do you see from the street? You still see, what's the trajectory of the drive, of the,
You couldn't even see that sticking out from the front, from the street.
but you can, there's a driveway and a garage door.
Correct.
Okay. Okay, thanks.
Originally, they had it about 4 feet lower, and so you would have gone down into a depressed garage.
I can add some information to that. If you, I'm the homeowner. Yeah, so originally the plan was to have the garage completely underground, and the intent was it was going to be not a steep drop off, but a bit of a drop down. The issue was if we were to have a pump at the bottom of it, if the power went out, there was going to be concern that the garage would flood and cause more damage. The intent then was to add 1 foot of rise per foot of run to the driveway, which would then raise it above ground, and that's where originally it was below ground. It now is going to stick above and have a negative or have a runoff towards the street vice into the house.
Okay, thanks. That's helpful.
Any other questions of the applicant? Yes, one question I have you had a chance to speak with your neighbors?
I have actually the letter here from the neighbor across the street. And thank you for seeing my case again. I spoke to the neighbors, and they've seen the plans as advertised, and their only concern was, and I've showed them plans, and they have no issue with it now, was they wanted to make sure that the aesthetic of the front of the house wasn't going to change dramatically, and they just want to make sure it keeps with the style of the neighborhood. And so there's no major change except for the garage being dropped 1 story, and then the structure that will be on top of the garage will be in keeping with the current style of the house. Also have another neighbor here who's here last month as well, and I'm sure she has some comments as well. We've had a discussion with regards to...
Has put in a speaker slip, and so
Okay.
we'll hear from her, and then we'll hear back from you.
Absolutely.
Other questions of the applicant? Okay, why don't you have a seat, and we'll hear from Nancy Elkins? Elkins.
As I told Brett, I'm not here to kill his proposal.
Moment, it's, you are at 3183 North
17th.
17th
Next door.
Street. And are you on the right or the left?
On the right in that picture.
Okay, you're the house that's directly next to where the construction's going to be.
And while I'm not thrilled with a reduced setback, I'll live with it. But I do think there are some errors and omissions in the application that maybe we can just fix right here tonight without going through the whole thing again. The PDF that was on the website and the copy here, I think, is missing the last page, which is the percent coverage calculation. And
It's on here on the last page.
no, there's another page after that in the earlier application where you actually see the percentages. I can show you what it looked like in the earlier application if that. It may be, didn't make it into the copy. It may be that this was submitted with no changes because there's perception that no changes were made, except I'm wondering whether the fact that there's now an additional above-ground portion adds some square feet that we need to go into this calculation, which is already pretty close to the limit. It maybe wouldn't change the result, but
There's actually my calculations on the application that Cecilia has right there. There's a little blue sticky on the front.
So 43%, which is still within the max.
Okay, but were there square feet added into it to cover?
That would be with,
Okay, because I haven't seen that, so, and.
no, it looks like Mr. Noxon simply calculated it based on the information that was in the application. And I trust his math definitely more than I would trust mine.
Well,
Came up with
mine
40,
too,
he came up with 43%, which is a little bit larger than the one from last month, but not over the limit. So it's not something that would be impacted, that we would have to grant a use permit for. But I appreciate you bringing that to our attention, because sometimes that would be definitely the thing that would come back and we'd have to do it again.
There's also an implicit assumption that the variance granted in November of 1912 is still valid, and it's not separately stated in here, but it's my understanding that that variance is null and void because there was no building permit. And I think it would be helpful if we're going to, again, give that variance, which is fine with me, but that be stated in here so that it's clear to everybody the total scope.
That's part of the conditions. On the last page of the staff report, it states that you must obtain a building permit within this date next year. So they have a year or it expires, just like the other one expired already.
I know, but this one doesn't. It seems to me like he should be re-requesting the left side variance.
No, once he makes, if we grant this use permit, then that covers, from the property's condition, it covers all of that.
I know what you're getting at. The left side setback is no longer needed. I spoke to Mr. Philip Bentley, the contractor. They were originally going to underpin that left side of the house, which was a structural alteration to the non-conforming side. They decided they're not going to do that anymore, and they no longer need that approval.
So yes, if they were changing that, then it would require a new request.
Okay. Then I really don't understand your cumulative setback calculations. And I also think they're reversed in the two resolutions. I think there is language in here that says that staff does not recommend the 3.9 variance, but wants him to go back to his earlier plan.
That's correct.
And so that's why there's a resolution and an alternate resolution.
Yes.
And one of them says the resolution without the 3.9 says an aggregate side yard of 11.3 feet. The one with the 3.9 has an aggregate side yard of 11.6 feet, and it should have a smaller aggregate side yard because I think it's just flipped. I think they're in the wrong. If we moved 11.3 to the alternate and 11.6 to the regular, then I think it might be right, although I think that assumes the previously granted variance on the left side.
No, this doesn't have anything to do with the variance on the left side. This is only dealing with the right side of the property.
I don't think it is. With all due respect, you're the zoning chairman and I'm not, but the 18 feet refers to a 10-foot on one side and an 8-foot on the other side.
No, you're correct on that. It should be the other way around. We should have 11.6 for the first resolution. 11.3 would be for the approval as advertised. So you're right, those are switched around.
Thank
So
you
we should
for
have
that.
11.3 for the alternative, 11.6 for the first approval.
But when I went back and tried to figure out, okay, where did those numbers come from, it looks like you're taking the greatest variance between garage, wall, and eave for each side of it. And so I believe that the 11.3 and the 11.6 assume some variance on the left side.
That's taking into account the placement of the existing house on the left side, where it already is.
Okay.
So you have what is it here? You have 7.4 feet, and then whatever they're asking for now on the right side, that's the aggregate.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I think that's all I have. I would like to hear what the staff has to say about why they prefer one over the other. I can't get too excited about it, in part because there was going to be underground excavation to that point anyway. And then that's my concern in general, is that having to excavate so close to the lot line has a certain probability of damaging my retaining walls on that side. And kind of on a gentleman's and ladies' agreement basis. You know, orally, we've said we'll work that out if that happens, but that's the basis of my concern, which happens in either case, whether it's above ground or below ground.
Great. Thank you very much for your input. I think that is the issue, Mr. Knox, and we haven't addressed, which is your recommendation versus the advertised amount, and I don't think that our applicant addressed that either, so we'll have to answer that question from both of you, if you wouldn't mind.
Well, our recommendation is based on, we typically have a threshold of 5 feet for use permits in side yards. Anything closer, we usually do not support, just because the closest the ordinance allows a structure to be to a side property line is 5 feet. And that's for things like stairs or area ways or, some other structures as well. So that's generally what we go by. The structure before was completely underground and did not have to meet a setback. That part that was underground was fine where it was, but now that it's lifted out of the ground about 2 feet, has to meet the setback. Now it's more like a platform encroaching 3.9 feet from the property line. We wouldn't support a deck or a platform for a landing for stairs or something like that close to the property line. But that's similar to what it's going to look like.
Thank you. Mr. Liebleheimer? I don't think you did speak to the differences between the staff's recommendation and what you've requested, if you wouldn't mind addressing that to those issues for the board.
The concern,
Well, first of all, would you accept the recommendation of the staff?
that was to make the garage, or to basically cut a portion of the garage off the back to keep it within, or to basically shave off a corner of that. That shouldn't be a problem. It's not fundamentally important to the structure to have the entire length. The intent was to be able to park a modern vehicle in the garage, in the subterranean garage. And the intent was, the vehicle I have now, it fits into my garage. Unfortunately, you can't open the doors, and that was the intent, was that by dropping the garage, I could have a wider garage. Unfortunately, because of concerns about flooding inside the house, it was raised, and then that became an issue, was the 2 feet above ground. So having the garage as it stands now will be about 25 feet long, because it was be subterranean. So cutting that corner of it off, I don't imagine being an issue, but I'm not also an engineer, so I couldn't tell you, but I don't think that'd be an issue.
Well, that's helpful for us. Any other questions? No, we're not allowing, we don't allow questions from the audience. I think if we're ready to go forward, we need to proceed first with an amendment to the proposed resolution when it's moved. Either one, and a choice on which resolution the board will entertain.
Madam Chairman,
Mr. Russell.
I move that the Board of Zoning Appeals adopt the alternative resolution granting use permit V1073712 UP2, subject to the conditions listed in the resolution. This would be the resolution as advertised and requested by the applicant, with the replacement of 11.6 feet by 11.3 feet.
It's been moved. Ms. Freshman seconds. Any discussion on that? Yes.
So, Mr. Russell, if the applicant was willing to go with what the staff report is, why are you willing to go with as advertised?
It was designed and requested that way. It's 3.6 inches. I don't blame him for being willing to shave off 3.6 inches. I think it's just so very de minimis that what's the difference? If he wants to go ahead and still shave off 3.6 inches, he can, but he doesn't have to.
Thank you.
And this is only for the back portion, let me just be clear, correct?
Correct.
So the majority of this will not be that close to the property line.
Yes, Madam President. Just because the size of the lot, the way it's shaped, it's like a pie shape. It's unfortunately, anything I build back there is going to encroach just a little bit. And so that's why I'm trying to get as much goodwill towards this. This has been definitely a learning process for me as a recent first-time homeowner. I appreciate your patience as I learn the ins and outs.
Thank you for coming back, and more importantly, thank you with working with your neighbor, and I hope that this has opened the beginning of conversations and will continue them in a positive vein.
Absolutely.
Ready for a vote?
I don't know. I guess we'll go for a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
So, and opposed? I'm going to say nay. So the motion carries 3-1.
Thank you very much.
I would have gone with the staff recommendation. So.
The next case tonight is also another carryover. This is this is case number V-10886-14-UP-1. This is a carryover and revised request use permit by Vamsi Baku to permit a setback of 5 feet to the eave, 5.3 feet to the wall of a new one-story detached garage from the rear property line instead of 10 feet as required, 17.4 feet to the eave, and 17.7 feet to the wall of the garage from the South Grant Street right-of-way instead of 25 feet as required. Setback of 16.5 feet to the steps, 19.7 feet to the porch eave, 20.5 feet to the porch base, and 23.3 feet to the two bay windows from the 21st Street South right-of-way instead of 25 feet as required. And finally, 2.9 feet between the eaves and 4 feet between the walls and the new detached garage in the main building instead of 8 feet as required. And this is for a new one-story detached garage, a covered front porch with steps, and 2 front bay windows is in the R5 zoning district on the premises known as 643 21st Street South. There's an additional request. Actually, it's to withdraw the proposed garage. So they would just like to ask tonight for the 2 bay windows and the front porch from the 21st Street South right-of-way.
And the recommendation was to adopt the attached resolution denying the use permit for the detached garage, but approving the front porch with steps and 2 front bay windows.
Correct.
And then an alternative had been provided if we wanted to grant the use permit as advertised. In light of the statement that the applicants are withdrawing the garage, that would be unnecessary, so we'll be focusing on the initial resolution.
And the withdrawal request came after the report was published, so that's why you're not seeing it right now.
And I don't see, is Vamsi Banshu here, or just Sean Nazamian? Okay. So the builder is here, Mr. Nazamian.
He was just here, actually, and he had to leave because of his kid in called 6.
8630C
Lee Highway.
Lee Highway, Fairfax Drive is your address. Thank you for being here on behalf of the applicants. Is it the intent of the applicants to simply leave the existing garage then? Is that what the plans are?
Well,
Or would they come in with another use permit at a later time?
that's actually, he wants to discuss that with his wife and later on decide on the garage at a later point.
But so as far as you know, though, right now, there's no plans, and there's no need to take down the garage to grant the request. Is that correct, Mr. Noxon?
The existing garage,
Yes.
is that still going to be removed?
The existing garage is going to be removed.
Yeah.
Oh, it is going to be removed. Okay, that was what I wasn't sure of, because I know we've talked about this
No, the
request for a long time, and,
The plan for the addition would cut into the garage, so they would have to remove it.
okay.
We have adopted the, based on the staff recommendation and discussions in the last 2 hearings, that we have moved the addition be by rights from 8 feet from or 10 feet from the right side. So that would make the garage to go away anyway.
You just need the bay, that's why you just need the bay windows and
Right.
additional part. Any additional questions?
I guess I'm still confused. So if I were to make the motion, or whoever makes the motion, do we still include denying the detached garage, or does one delete that since it's no longer part of the request?
I think we would modify the resolution to indicate that the request for the garage was withdrawn, so that it's clear on the record.
In that case, let's see if I can do this. I move the Board of Zoning Appeals adopt the attached resolution for use permit, approving use permit V-10886-14-UP-1 for front porch with steps and the 2 front bay windows, with the understanding that the garage has been withdrawn.
So
The request for the garage has been withdrawn.
If the chair may entertain, if maybe we should suggest removing the words denial of detached garage, comma, with, making in the title of the resolution, and making approval the first word in that sentence.
Which is what I was trying to do, but I'll redo it if you like. I move the Board of Zoning Appeals adopt the attached resolution use permit for use permit V-10886-14-UP-1 for approval of the front porch with steps and the 2 front bay windows.
Yep.
With the understanding that the request for the garage has been withdrawn.
Perfect.
Say adopt the attached resolution to withdraw the use permit for the detached garage, but approve the front porch with steps and 2 front bay windows.
We could do it that way. If there's a second.
We don't have a resolution to withdraw before us. That was the only question.
Exactly.
Exactly.
Correct. But it's by right.
Right.
So it's been moved as amended,
Second.
and a second by Ms. Freshman. Mr. Noxon has the language down. So all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? It carries 4-0. Thank you very much.
Okay. Our next case tonight, this is a new one. This is V-10921-14-UP-1. This is a use permit request by David Boykan and Murren McClafferty to permit a setback of 12.7 feet to the front porch roof, 17.3 feet to eave, and 18.7 feet to the dormer wall from the 20th Street North right-of-way instead of 25 feet as required. It's for a reconstructed front porch roof and a new second-story dormer addition above an existing front porch. It's in the R6 zoning district, premises known as 4049 20th Street North.
And the recommendation is to adopt the attached resolution approving the subject use permit with conditions. Any questions of staff on this case? Okay, if there are no questions of staff, are David Boykin or Murren McCaffrey Lafferty here? There we go.
Hi, my name's Dave Boykin. I'm the homeowner. My wife, Murren, wasn't able to make it tonight.
Well, thank you for attending. What do you want to tell us about your proposed?
Basically, we've outgrown our house, and we're really attached to the neighborhood and the community and to Arlington in general, and we want to stay. So our proposal is to put a second floor on so we can live more comfortably. We spent a lot of time over the last year working with an architect firm to maintain the character. The current house sits within the front setback, specifically the porch, the stairs, and the dormer So as a result, the second story, we'd like to put it on the current footprint. No new foundation work. So as a result, that roof, as the gentleman explained, in the new dormer would be impacted, would be replaced.
So at the end of the day, there'll be a second floor, and the house structure is theoretically going to look somewhat similar to what it does today.
From the front, it'll look very similar. The pitch will be a little bit higher because we want to put a bedroom, and the dormer a little bit bigger. The dormer is actually going to be set back quite a bit farther from the property line, but it's going to be bigger.
Looks like nice drawings.
Thanks. I'll pass that on to the architect.
Any questions? Nope. The chair would entertain a motion.
This one looks simpler. I'll try this one. I move that the Board of Zoning Appeals adopt the attached resolution granting use permit V-10921-14-UP-1, subject to the conditions listed in the resolution.
Thank you, Ms. Craven. Second? Second. Thank you, Ms. Freshman. It's been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Hearing no one in opposition, the motion carries 4-0. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for your time.
The next case is V-10922-14-UP-1. This is a use permit request by Peter Pfeiffer and Kathleen Michael to permit a setback of 19 feet from the North Brandywine Street right-of-way instead of 25 feet as required. This is for a new rear one-story sunroom addition and a new rear landing with steps. It's in the R27 zoning district on the premises known as 4800 20th Place North.
And the recommendation is to adopt the attached resolution granting the subject use permit with conditions. As we see from the picture, the lot is very odd shape and a corner. Any questions of staff? Seeing none. Peter Pfeiffer, is that you?
No, ma'am. My name is Bill Reams. I am the
Okay,
general
Mr.
manager.
Greens, have you filled out a speaker slip?
Have not.
Okay, I need you to do that.
I apologize.
Thought I was on top of them.
Apologize. Who gets this?
You can just hand it to me. Right. Actually.
There you go.
Okay, and you are William Reams?
Correct.
At 10595 Furnace Road in Lorton, Virginia, is that correct?
That's correct.
And who are you, who?
The applicant's agent and contractor.
Okay, thank you, Mr.
Reaffirm my application.
So,
Wish I could offer a lot more than is advertised in the staff report. This is probably about as straightforward as we could make it. There's an existing structure that predates the homeowner's purchase of the home. It's sort of a greenhouse type structure. Our intention is to build on the exact same spot. We're not getting any closer to the property line than we are now. The only thing that we'll be changing, we're going to be coming out 2 feet further, going 3 feet further to the other side, not towards the fence. So we will maintain, the shed obviously will go, then we will maintain the exact same lineage on the wall that faces the corner. So that won't change at all. We're not getting any closer to the property line. You will notice that there is a building, or a landing on the front that leads out to the backyard. And of course, that is for current code compliance and egress requirements. Other than that, I don't have a lot to add. This is about as simple as we could make it.
Okay, can I obtain clarification on what you provided in the packet?
We have two. Oh, this is the second one for everybody. Is that right?
Yeah, we were asked to bring 5 copies of this, the original, the application.
You already have?
We'll give one to Mr. Knox. And it looks a little different because it has colored
Right.
pictures in it.
Exactly.
The colored portion is something that we have 3 plats done. One that shows nothing, one that shows how it is now, and the plat that's colored shows where we're going to be building. We highlighted that one to show you where we're going to be.
And how do we address this if it wasn't part of the advertised packet? Clarification? I mean, on some level, I can treat this as information added to the record this evening, and I think it doesn't do anything beyond what was requested and advertised. Is that correct, Mr.?
That's correct.
Just want the clarification on the record for that.
There's already a set of steps there. We just have to add a landing to it to be code compliant.
So the stairway on the rear has changed.
In what way? Check that. Check that. The one that you see on the plat shows it's extending into the yard. The one on the architect drawings shows it going to the side. They are going to the side. They're not extending that far back in the yard.
So you want it to the side where it's shown in our
Correct.
packet? Okay. Because the 5 copies that I asked them for was just for any letters from neighbors that you bring forward. We didn't need, anything additional.
Apparently, she misunderstood that. I only brought 1 copy of that.
Okay. So then we're going with the original packet that we had on the website and what was distributed. Okay.
That's correct.
What's advertised?
So then we really don't need these packets.
Nice pictures.
They're nice pictures. But we will act on the packet that we have before us, and that'll keep the record cleaner.
Okay.
But I think, see, you also had larger, why don't I give these back to you?
The one gets stuck in there,
Let me give you that back.
You need that to get your permit.
Yes, you're right. It's stamped and everything.
Okay. And I do have I'll be passing to my colleagues letters from one person who appears to be approving now, who is Mr. Chia?
Mr. Chi is a neighbor.
No objections to the sunroom, okay.
4802. Oh, the next, the other part of the duplex, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, and that we will put into the packet.
Yes, ma'am.
Any additional questions of Mr. Reams?
Motion? I move the Board of Zoning Appeals adopt the attached resolution granting use permit V-10922-14-UP1, subject to the conditions listed in the resolution.
Second.
Been moved and seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
There you go.
Thank you very much.
Congratulations.
Y'all have a good evening.
You too.
Our next case tonight is V-10923-14-UP-1. It's a use permit request by Matthew and Marie Hinneman to permit a setback of 5.4 feet to the addition from the left side property line instead of 8 feet as required. Also 5 feet to the eave and 5.5 feet to the wall of the addition from the right side property line instead of 10 feet as required. Finally, an aggregate side yard of 10.4 feet instead of 18 feet as required. This is all for a new 2-story rear addition. This is in the R6 zoning district on a premises known as 809 South Lincoln Street.
And the recommendation is to adopt the attached resolution approving the subject use permit with conditions. Any questions of staff? Okay, and seeing none, are Matthew or Marique Henneman here?
Hi, my name is Merike Henneman.
Welcome, Ms. Henneman.
Thank you. I'm the homeowner.
And your packet's pretty clear. You indicated what it is that you want to do. Is there anything else you'd like to tell us?
This is pretty similar case to the prior case where we lived in the neighborhood for 10 years and we love our neighbors. We have outgrown the house and we'd love to stay in the neighborhood by extending the house. And it's going to be 2-floor extension, which will give us space that we need.
We do see that you contacted your neighbors.
Yes, and everybody is very friendly, as you can see. We got all the neighbors to sign off on it. And actually, one of our neighbors had constructed similar extension just a few years back.
No questions? The chair would entertain a motion.
I move the Board of Zoning Appeals adopt the attached resolution granting use permit V-10923-14-UP-1, subject to the conditions listed in the resolution.
Second. Been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Hearing no objections, the motion carries 4-0.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, this next case is V-10924-14-UP-1. This is a use permit request by Andrew Walk and Melissa Martinak to permit a setback of 18.2 feet to the porch eave, 18.3 feet to the porch base, 21.8 feet to the one-story addition, and 22.7 feet to the second-story addition, all from the 18th Street North right-of-way instead of 25 feet as required. It's for a new one-story front addition, a new front porch with steps, and a new second-story addition above the new front porch. This is all in the R6 zoning district, premises known as 6261 18th Street North.
And the recommendation here is to adopt the attached resolution approving the subject use permit with conditions. Any questions of staff? Seeing no questions of staff, are Andrew Walke or Melissa Martinak present?
I'm Andrew Walke, the homeowner.
What do you want to share with us, Mr. Walke?
I just want to thank you for the time this evening, and then also, I guess the reason for this addition and expansion is over a year ago we just had a child, so our 2-bedroom Cape Cod sort of got a little too small, especially considering the multiple grandparent visits that we had planned, and we feel a little bad having them stay in a hotel since they're getting older. So that's sort of the catalyst for having this addition. The goal of the project is to expand our family, expand our home for a family, provide for grandparents' visits, and to provide potential for future potential expansion. The use permit will allow us to have a front porch. We enjoy the neighborhood and the neighbors, and as they're walking from the metro, it gives us an opportunity to replace those 2 Adirondack chairs you see with actual, maybe nicer furniture. Also expands our living room and then allows for an additional bedroom upstairs with limited impact to the backyard, so Madison can play as she gets older.
Okay, any questions? Again, a well-prepared packet. We appreciate your reaching out to your neighbors and providing clear explanations of what you want.
Thank you.
Makes it a lot easier for us as we review the information, and I think the chair is ready for a motion.
Madam Chairman,
Mr. Russell. Thank you.
I move that the Board of Zoning Appeals adopt the resolution granting use permit V1092414 UP1, subject to the conditions listed in the resolution.
Second.
Take Ms. Craven's second. It's been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. I heard 4 ayes. The motion carries.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Good luck. Enjoy your home and your children.
Oh, thank you. Have a good night.
Thanks.
The next case tonight is a withdrawal request. This is V-10925-14-VA-1. This is a variance request by Alexander and Danielle Sheffer to permit a total lot coverage of 46% instead of 45% is permitted. It's for a new left side screen porch. It's in the R6 zoning district, premises known as 4311 16th Streets North.
Motion?
Yes.
I move the Board of Zoning Appeals withdraw the variance V-1092514VA1.
Second.
Been moved by Ms. Freshman, seconded by Ms. Craven. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, so I believe that carries 4-0 as well. Next case, Mr. Noxon.
The next case is the associated use permit. This is V-10925-14-UP-1. This is a use permit request by Alexander and Danielle Sheffer to permit a setback of 3.9 feet to the eave and 4.5 feet to the wall from the left side property line instead of 8 feet is required, and also an aggregate side yard of 13.9 feet instead of 18 feet is required. It's for the construction of a new left side screen porch. It's in the R6 zoning district on a premises known as 4311 16th Street North.
And the recommendation is to adopt the attached resolution granting a setback of 4.5 feet to the eave and 5 feet to the wall of the new screen porch with conditions. And again, the staff has provided an alternative resolution should the BZA wish to approve the use permit as advertised. Questions of staff as to the reason for the recommendation? I think we have on the record from the earlier case, it's consistent with the zoning administrator's policy of not approving anything less than 5 feet. Is that correct?
That's correct.
In light of that, I think we're prepared to go forward, unless there are questions for staff, to hear from Alexander and or Daniel Sheffer.
Hi.
Hi.
All right, my wife couldn't make it tonight. She's putting our kids down. So basically, when we bought this house 4 years ago, one of the big selling points was the porch on the side. We loved being able to sit out there and see all the trees, and it seemed very rustic. We liked it. Shortly after buying it, though, we realized that there was a horrendous mosquito problem, and it's almost unusable certain parts of the year. So for a long time, we've always wanted to be able to screen it in. After talking to builders, we realized that screening in the structure that's there, as it's aging, it's sort of impeding a tree and other factors, wasn't realistic. It needs to be torn down and rebuilt, and that's where we came upon the fact that it's over the setback lines, which started this whole process. As you can see from that picture, our house, which you can see in the foreground, that wouldn't move, and that's only 3.9 feet from the property line. So what we're proposing is to tear down the structure and put it all, even everything, within that line. I know that the county recommendation is to push us in another 6 inches to the 5 feet. That 6 inches may not seem like a big deal to the county, but to us it actually is a pretty big deal for a couple of reasons. One is that there's a window on the back of the house that would push the wall right into that window. So we'd have to replace the window and get that area re-sided. Secondly, I think aesthetically it won't look as good if it bumps in like that. I think it'll look better if it's one straight shot down the side. And third, and probably most importantly, is that tree right there has a root system which goes right under that deck. One of our goals is, and it may not be realistic, but one of our goals is to preserve that tree as long as possible. If we can put the wall where we propose it, we may be able to reuse some of the existing footers of that deck for the new structure. So, you're dealing with a living organism, so it's always a risk. But our hope is to reuse whatever posts we can, and I think if we put the wall where we proposed it, we'll be able to reuse more of them.
Do we have an aerial view, Ms. Williams? Well, not one that has the porch on it, though.
Fortunately, you can't see any from any aerial views
The
because of that tree.
is all aerial view. The tree basically goes completely over our house.
So is that tree that we see from the aerial view, though, the one that is right adjacent to the deck?
Yes, it is. And the current structure is, we've actually moved it off once before. The current structure was, when we bought the place, only like an inch off and the tree grew into it. Now it's a few inches off the current structure. But when we rebuild, we'll get a little more space from the tree.
Meaning that the deck will not encroach as close to the tree as the current deck?
Yes, correct. The current deck is closer. The current deck is an odd-shaped, sort of puzzle piece looking thing, and we're proposing something that's a slightly smaller footprint, more usable space, and also further off the property line. I'd also like to mention that in the packet, there's one letter from a neighbor. I've also secured a letter from the neighbor. So I have letters from neighbors on both sides.
Thank you. If you could provide that to, if you give it to Mr. Russell, I'll look at it, unless you have copies for all of us. So the second letter is from Robert Davis Balderston, 4317 16th Street North.
Next door neighbor.
So yeah, so we have now letters from the neighbors on each side of the house.
Right. And the ones across the street, I've had discussions with them, but they're not going to even be able to see it, and no one voiced any issues.
Right.
Okay. Any additional questions of the applicant?
Nope.
If none, Chair is willing to entertain a motion.
I move that the Board of Zoning Appeals adopt the attached alternative resolution granting use permit V-10925-14-UP-1, subject to the conditions listed in the resolution.
It's been moved by Ms. Craven, seconded by Ms. Freshman. All in favor? Aye. Hearing all four voices, your motion carries 4-0.
Great. Thanks very much for your time.
This one seems further away from this property than the other. This is further away from any house, right?
That too. But it goes with the property line, or the house line, and it just makes sense, yeah.
And the other, for me, the other one was so close to the neighbor.
Okay, our next case is V-10926-14-UP-1. This is a use permit request by Shiva Kermanshi to permit a setback of 1.2 feet from the North Danville Street right-of-way and the rear property line instead of 25 feet as required. This is to maintain an existing barbecue grill and chimney in its current location. It's in the R5 zoning district on a premises known as 2608 12th Street North.
And the recommendation is to adopt the attached resolution denying the subject use permit. An alternative resolution has been provided should the BZA wish to grant the use permit. Questions of staff? Let me start with, and how did this come to our attention?
This is from a complaint from a neighbor.
The neighbor whose property is right adjacent?
Correct. You can see the house directly in this picture to the left.
I have a question of staff. I read the statement of justification, and if I were the homeowner, I would also think that this had all been approved. This was all done as part of the building. The county issued they gave a certificate of occupancy. There was an inspection of the property. This person had no way of knowing that this was not, at least from my perspective, reading this, I would agree with them that I would not have any way of knowing. And Is there something that he should have known that did not happen while this was being built?
The issue we came up with was there was a final survey that was approved by the county that did not show this structure. So this, I don't think it was till the complaint came up that we investigated it, but we didn't have any record of it on the final survey. Also, their final survey did have an issue too. It was missing the North Danville Street right-of-way. So there's some other issues with that involved. So either the surveyor left it out or it was built after the final inspection on the home was done by zoning.
And even in the statement of justification, it does say that this was built in May 2012, shortly after the main house was built. That does not necessarily mean that it was built prior to the time that the county had issued the certificate of occupancy. That's how I had read that statement.
Well, that's interesting, because the inspection on the property was performed after it was built. But yet, well, I get your point.
It's a lovely structure. Oh. Any additional questions of staff? If not, I believe on behalf of the applicants, we have Susan Ehrman,
That's right. That's right.
1364 Beverly Road, number 201, McLean, Virginia.
That's right. Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening, Chair Espinoza, Vice Chair Craven. Mr. Smith has not shown up. Mr. Russell, Ms. Freshman, Mr. Noxon, Ms. Kozar, and Ms. Williams. Is that correct? All right. Again, Susan Ehrman with Freelander and Freelander PC. I'd like just to clarify your question. I can have my client affirm that the structure was in place at the time that the occupancy permit was given. So although there's some confusion as a statement from her justification, if you need her to affirm that under oath, we can certainly do that. But as stated in her application, this charcoal grill with the chimney was installed at the time of the development of the parcel. So maybe it was developed after the house, but it was developed prior to the occupancy permit was issued. So that was the summer of 2012, and I think that occupancy permit is attached in the report. She believed that all parts of her development had been approved and permitted by Arlington County. It was not until the notice of violation was issued that she was aware of the conflict with the county code. As you can see, the grill is located at the rear of the lot and is partially abutting the part of a county right-of-way. Now, if you look at the plat as provided, I don't know if we can turn to that. The right-of-way appears to be just a portion of the corner of the lot and doesn't encompass that whole rear lot line. Is that correct, Mr. Noxon?
That's correct.
Okay, so I'd like to clarify the representation of the advertisement. The 1.2, the 1 foot 2 inches is the, when looking at this picture, is the right-hand side of this grill. That abuts the property of the neighbor, not the right-of-way. When you move forward, when you're looking at the grill moving to the right, it's at an angle, so that's about 6 feet from the lot line, which that would be the right-of-way. So it's not 1.2 feet from the right-of-way. I mean, it is 1.2 feet from a lot line, but it's not the right-of-way, which is, if you can look at that plat, you can see it's just that ever so sliver on the that corner. So it's a little bit of an odd placement. So continuing on, as long as we can clarify the description, I want to talk about the compatibility of the development of their surrounding neighborhood. I mean, this is a nice, beautifully appointed Mediterranean-style home, and it's an interior lot where the house sits about 34 feet from the rear lot line. In conformance with the code, if you're going to strictly adhere that there is a right-of-way, there would be no way to place this grill or to exist in the requirements that set forth 15 feet from the house or 25 feet from the right-of-way. And even if it remained or moved it slightly, it would not even have a different impact on the neighborhood. There are structures within this neighborhood, not necessarily grills, that sit close to lot lines, and this particular grill is consistent with a number of grills that you've recently approved by special permit in other areas of the county. I think they were all approved in November of 2013. I believe both structures were far greater in size and girth than this one. Again, it's at an angle, so it is closer to one side, but it does veer out and is a more substantial distance, more like 6 feet as you move from left to right. The varied placement of this structure, there's varied placements of structures throughout this neighborhood, and it's a very textured neighborhood. Not everything is consistent, which is always such a nice thing about Arlington. So I think it's consistent with the development of the neighborhood because it is different and it is beautiful, and it adds texture to an already textured area in Clarendon. This is a charcoal grill. It has no propane or natural gas component. It has no plumbing. I think it makes it safer than a movable grill that's standard to most households. It has a safety flue and a flue cap that protects against any embers escaping. And as such, it's a safe structure. The tall chimney helps keep any smoke off the ground level. As we all know, smoke travels where the wind blows, and moving this grill from one direction to the other, it will not affect the smoke or the wind. But the current configuration with the chimney that directs it vertically, I think, is a benefit. And it would be better than just a standard grill that doesn't direct the air upward. I think the other, this structure is about, 3 feet in width and 8.4 feet and then I think it's about 10 feet high. And I think that one of the structures that was approved in November was 3.5 feet by 13 feet wide and 9.9 feet tall.
I think that was built into a retaining wall.
It was Mr. Weincheck's property. It's certainly smaller than a square footage of a shed or a garage, and only a small portion of the southwest corner is at that 1.2 feet location. But as I said, it was angled, and if we need to take a look at that plat. There's no impact to surrounding trees or any historical features, and again, it's a well-appointed grill designed in concert with the unique style of Dr. Kermanchi's home, which is, again, as I said, Mediterranean. There are neighbors who support those. I think that we've supplied those letters. They live on both 12th Street and North Daniel. It is understood that the 1 Daniel Street neighbor is unhappy, but he purchased his lot with this structure in place and in use for 2 years. So moving it further into the lot line would not make any difference to this particular owner, and I think the location is actually in a perfect spot because it's keeping it away from his front house, and it's keeping it also away. There's a larger structure of a garage abutting the neighbor on the right-hand side looking at the photos. As I said, the neighbor felt that all the development was in compliance. The code does permit other buildings and structures to exist within, or buildings to exist within, like eaves, within the 1 foot from the lot lines. And I couldn't find any definition of accessory structure, so I was trying to go through your code to see if there was any sort of, I take issue with the notice because I think that the language is at odds with the code, but this is not an appeal of the notice, it's an application, so I'd rather focus on the application than the language of the notice. Again, it's well placed considering the neighbor. Now in that photo, that aerial photo, I think you can see the grill, sort of that white spot in the far corner, looking at the lower corner. There's a fence there now. And so the fence is in the same color and it's got the same sort of technique as far as the color of the wood and the stone. It looks really nice from that area. So the fence line and the stones match a neutral color, so it's quite nice from the Daniel Street view. It's impossible to have this grill to adhere to the strict compliance. Requiring demolition or redevelopment would be at a substantial removal expense and not really economically efficient for the owner. It wouldn't change how the grill would be used, would not alter any smoke panners, and would not provide any added advantage to any of the neighborhoods considering the nature of the lot configuration with that small corner on the right-of-way. Again, effects on safety. The assumptions in the staff report that it may be adverse to safety I don't believe are well-founded and are merely presumptions. And as stated in the report, are presumptions. Repeated here, it's got a safety flue. It's got a cap, a safety cap, and in addition, I found out tonight, it has, on the interior, it's got metal trays that that keep the charcoal in place so the charcoal can't fall out. So safety is a big concern. And again, I think since it doesn't have a gas line or a propane tank, I think that creates another safety advantage. It's used periodically during the appropriate season. Effects on the public welfare to the property and improvements. Again, this is a beautiful new construction within the last few years. And with it remaining on its current footprint, doesn't negatively impact anyone's welfare. Any grill in any backyard is going to have the same effect on the neighbors, regardless of the location. I think the current location is ideal for everyone. I think it's far enough away from structures. I think the chimney height's appropriate and directs any smoke to be directed straight up vertically. If there's issues of line of sight, I haven't really discussed anything with the neighbor. I've just been retained. I don't know if any vegetation could be planted on his property, not that that's been entertained, but certainly we could offer that. And due to these reasons, we think that the permit should be granted. If you have questions that we haven't addressed, or you think there's more information that you need, if we think that this would not be approved, we can certainly defer and get you more information. But looking at the code, I think that there are provisions that permit you to build this close, and I think that the closest it is 1.2, and it's not a very large structure, and it moves away at about 6 feet. So we'd like for you to approve the permit in place.
Question of staff. What is the address of that yellow house you see in this picture?
Do you know the
One, two, let's see, the one to the right. That is, I'll tell you here.
Go ahead. It's 1071 North Danville Street.
That one right there?
Is what?
Yes, 1071 North Danville Street.
The one that shows as a vacant lot in our...
Correct.
Okay.
But it was built shortly after yours was built, is that correct?
But it's,
Right.
but it's in the complete
Last year.
opposite side of the lot from where it looks like the house is. I wish the house was placed on this picture because it's,
The aerial shows it. You get a better idea from that. There you go.
yeah, but I can't tell. That doesn't look yellow. The one with the blue roof, that's the one?
Right, with the large garage on the back. So they face Daniel.
But the grill is on the other side.
If you look directly south of the lot in this picture.
Oh, this one. Okay, gotcha. Okay.
It's on the curve,
All
it's on
right.
Danville.
Okay. But it still is on the other end. It's not like it's right there. It's on this side.
Street.
Yeah.
I think it was, well, I got the sense that there was the complaint about it being on the right-of-way. But I don't know, because it's on the corner, and so they were complaining because it was on the right-of-way. But as was pointed out, it's actually not exactly on the right-of-way because of where the curb cut is.
It's my understanding that the neighbor wasn't pleased with the fence that went up, and so there's been some tension about the fence, but the fence is properly permitted, and it just, unfortunately, isn't as neighborly as one would hope. And we would like to do whatever we can. Something on their side, we could certainly offer that.
But there wasn't the neighbor lived there prior to the fence?
Prior to the fence, but after the chimney. The grill was in place at the time she moved in. The fence was in place.
The grill was, good evening. The grill was built in May of 2012, 2 years ago. And the owner of 1071 North Danville Street purchased his property in June of 2014. So already the grill was there. I have the receipt and I have my checks that I paid to the contractor.
And when did the fence go up?
The fence went up end of past December.
So
it was already up to.
So the neighbor moved in when the fence was already up as well.
No. The neighbor moved in 2 years ago. Short.
Oh, 12. You had said 14. So
She did. So the grill was built in May of 2012. He moved in June of 2012. Your occupancy permit was July of 2012.
Right.
Fence went in December
2013.
2013.
Okay. And the complaint came in February?
His complaint was that the fence makes his property look smaller because at the time my backyard was abutting the side of his property, so visually it would make it look like his house is on a bigger lot. And
I can relate to that issue.
And you got a permit to build the fence, correct?
I did build a permit, and this is probably non-relevant, but I just went through a divorce. I got separated over a year ago, so I felt like my safety and the safety of my 6-year-old is very important, and I don't know what the owner of this particular property has, what problem he has with me, but he has encountered me in a very hostile manner to a point that I had to go to the police station, file something, and
It's just not neighborly.
Yeah.
and it just that since he found out that nothing could have been done with the fence, he picked on the grill.
Okay, thank you for that interpretation of what happened and also the statement of facts in terms of timing. And we can understand that, I think.
Thank you.
And I think, is there any other questions?
I have a,
Oh, thank goodness.
so, was the complaint investigated by the county staff for the fence, and the county staff discovered the grill when they investigated the fence?
I believe the call was about the fence originally, but he also said something about the grill. And then, of course, we went and investigated and, of course, saw that as well.
Okay.
But it was originally, yes, for the fence issue.
Right, but this complainant did complain about the grill.
Yes.
It wasn't discovered upon an inspection,
I believe so.
looking at other things.
And the fence was built in compliance with the permit?
And may I
Was.
add,
Okay, thank you.
may I add, this is a 25-foot setback from the Danville Street right-of-way. Some discussion has, there's been some words about you can have certain structures within a foot or two, and you can't from a right-of-way.
Right.
You can from a side yard or rear yard, and those things are specific. Thank you.
I'm sorry if I could just address it. If you look at not the entire backyard is in the right of way. It's only a small portion. If you look at the plat, the advertisement indicated that it was 1.2 from the right of way. I don't think that's accurate. I think it's 6 feet. I'm not saying that it's not 1.2 from a lot line. I'm not. I just wanted to clarify that. And I don't disagree with that statement.
No, and I guess when you made that statement in your test, and when you were making your point, I was looking at the plat, and the plat does seem to imply that the right-of-way, the 50-foot right-of-way is
It's this dotted line, isn't it?
dotted line, so it's not, I mean, if you draw a straight line from where that dotted line is, along the property line, isn't it?
Is it?
This is the right-of-way between these two things. That's where the right-of-way abuts. The complaining neighbor is this line. The other neighbor is this line. You've got to be 25 feet from any point here. So,
Any point.
so you would draw it as a,
Well, you have to be 25 feet from the rear property line as well. So regardless of the right-of-way, you need 25 feet.
well, there are structures that are allowed in the rear yard.
Accessory buildings, exactly. But not accessory structures. That's the difference here.
Thank you.
I know that makes it more difficult. Is the board prepared to make, anyone on the board prepared to make a motion?
I mean, and if you need more information about anything, we'd be more than happy to defer and provide it. I don't know what you might need in addition that would be beneficial for an approval.
I think the issue is the question of the right-of-way, and I don't think we need any more facts on that.
And
But, so I think that's why my colleagues are deciding.
Stan, I think just the fact that it was built and approved is, and it's a substantial amount to remove it. Because if it wasn't, we wouldn't be here.
Right.
can I just throw something out? Because I don't, if this was a Weber grill, they could have it there. If it was a gas grill that was on wheels, whatever, you could have it there. It's just the fact that it's built in that makes it not allowed. Not what it is, but just the fact that there's something there, right?
Well, I would ask the zoning administrator, but I agree with the point you're making.
You agree with that? That's all I'm saying.
That's my understanding, but I'd ask the zoning administrator.
Yes, you have to go to the definition of structure. Structure is attached to the ground. If you can roll it around, it's not attached.
Mhm. It also appears with it being an acrimonious relationship, that part of the problem is that it's taller than the fence. That may not be from the zoning point of view, but it may be from consternation point of view.
Right, I haven't heard any complaints about the line of sight. I think that my client could represent that people on North Daniel didn't even know it was there because it just sort of blends in with the fence and then the other structure. So that had not been anything I needed to address because they thought it looked nice. But, so we haven't, I mean, it's a good point, but it wasn't addressed because no one had mentioned. And the thought of the owner was that getting the smoke up and away from the neighbors and not having it congregate was beneficial.
You know, my point only is that it draws more attention, especially to the neighbor who is so difficult.
And my point is, you could have a grill there with smoke anyway, so, you know, if it was just a regular grill, so.
Smoker, like my husband tried to use last week, which would have produced a lot more difficulty than this grill does.
But there's still.
And you know, I guess, let me just say that in hearing the full case, and I did make a allusion to this in terms of understanding the difficulty of neighbors. We have very ugly competing fences along my property line because of a contentious neighbor. So I understand that those things can happen. I also understand that and I'm concerned with the fact that this woman herself did not build the structure, nor direct that the structure be built. And it appears, since she did not move into the house until after the structure was built, that I have a little bit of difficulty having her bear the expense of tearing it down if it's not causing a safety issue. But I balance that against our obligation to act in conformance with the zoning laws and rules. So I'm struggling personally, and I think we all are struggling a little bit with.
Is there any added information that you need us to gather for deferral? Like, you know, I just think that it's not as big as the two that you approved.
And the irony there is because those went on the lot line as part, and that's why I say, and they were part of the retaining walls. That's why we made an exemption. So if this had actually been built into the lot line, it may have caused less stress for us.
Those were located 5 feet from a lot line, not 1.2.
Right, but also the one that had the one that was deferred, let me get the name of the application, on Chesterfield, that had a right-of-way issue too, because there was a cul-de-sac.
That one was close. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That was a right-of-way issue as well.
And that one was close for much more of the structure than this is. I mean, the other side about it with this one is it's only the 1.2 at a certain point.
And that one has power.
Another thing, isn't it?
Sink, power, and I think a gas line, whereas this is charcoal. I mean, I could see if there was and I think the other grill it was charcoal plus a propane tank. And then the other one with the hot tub and had power and it had a sink and so it was a lot more substantial of, I would say, a structure than this is just. So.
Madam Chairman.
Mr. Russell.
I have a question of staff. Is there any place behind this house that this grill could have been approved?
You would have to be 25 feet from that rear property line or the right-of-way. The closest point of the house is 32.5 feet. Then you have the steps that come a little closer. I mean, it could be done, but it would be a lot closer to the home. And there is, to make it clear, there is no setback between this structure and the home. So it could literally be placed against the home. 2 feet from the home.
I guess we thought that it had to be 15 feet from the home and then 25 feet from the back lot line, which would make it impossible. So you're saying,
An accessory building would have to be 8 feet away. The ordinance used to prescribe 15 feet, but that was a long time ago. So since this is a structure, it can be anywhere in the buildable area.
it's just, it would not be economically efficient to deconstruct and construct, considering that it existed.
I think, Ms. Arms, thank you. We've heard from you. I think at this point we're deliberating, so thank you.
So if there could be something like this, 25 feet off the rear lot line and in the 10-foot side yard?
It would have to meet 8 and 10 on the side yards, so.
Okay, so it had to be in the buildable area.
Exactly.
Okay.
Mhm.
Yeah. Okay. And the issue is that it is connected to the ground or attached to the ground, whatever the right word is.
So we could jack it up and put it on wheels, and then it would be okay?
That's what we were just saying.
We're working with the language of the ordinance and the definitions.
Yeah.
And that's just how it is for a structure.
I think we had the same conversations when we addressed the other two grills, if you will, in the retaining wall and in the other yard. And a real question of whether that made sense. You know, because if it were on wheels, it wouldn't apply.
I don't recall those cases in detail. Were they from right-of-ways or were they from rear property lines?
One was from right away, the other 3 were from side lot lines.
We granted the one with the right-of-way, didn't we? I thought we had.
When was that?
Was it November, December?
I think it was November, December 2013.
That's what the attorney said.
I mean, I remember from around that time. I have pictures of a couple of them because they were in my head, but and they were pretty substantial.
This one had a trellis over the top of it. It was that massive trellis right next to an accessory building.
Mm-hmm. I also do find it interesting that the individual who complained did not show up at the hearing tonight. Or submit anything in writing. Is that correct from the staff?
That's correct.
I think, if I may, I think part of the issue is that this would never have gotten a permit. It wouldn't be before us, it wouldn't be anybody's issue, because it just wouldn't get a permit. And the zoning administrator has no authority to approve something that's built, whether it goes through inspection or any of that. If that were the case, then stuff like that would be corrected all the time by the zoning administrator going, yeah, we missed it, staff missed it. It becomes, you can't have that. I mean, you just can't have that. And so it's, everybody's stuck as a result of what's permitted, what the zoning ordinance permits. The zoning ordinance really doesn't permit these things. They're granted by use permit or variances or through that way. But think about it. You can't have one of these in the required rear yard. So in order to have one, you've got to have a rear yard that's deep enough in order to put one of these things within the buildable area. So if you don't have the buildable area, you just can't have one like this. And yes, there are alternatives that you can throw all over your yard. You can do it in the front yard, for that matter, because they're not structures. So The zoning administrator is tied by, even if she thought, this, oh, this is the greatest place in the world to have one, she couldn't approve it. And, you know, that's the dilemma of the thing, regardless of the amount of expense that was involved in putting it in or how it was discovered. It might have been discovered by the Civic Association doing one of their walkarounds, or anybody else, not just apparently a neighbor, an immediate neighbor that had a problem with it.
Well, or a problem with the fence, which is more likely the case.
We don't know. The neighbor is not here, and so we're hearing from staff and from everybody else what we think it is,
And I guess, Mr. Russell, I struggle because what I did hear was the zoning administrator doesn't have the authority. These things get granted by use permit or variances. And I struggle, therefore, to say, do we have the authority to do something? Because for me, it's that balancing of, is this consistent with the intent of the code? And I think that goes to the larger issue of why the zoning administrator doesn't have the authority. And these structures have been defined as accessory dwellings within the code, accessory structures within the code, which is why it makes it difficult, because by putting them in that definition as opposed to some other definition, we have been given direction from the county with how these should be treated. But I don't know.
I also think that we run into cases like this where the applicant or the current owner wasn't the one at fault, if you want to say something like that. Maybe the previous owner did it. We just had a deck that we legitimized that was built not where it's supposed to be, and it wasn't built with permits, and we go, well, it's okay. So we do make exceptions, but the fact that this current owner is innocent of having put it there doesn't make it okay to have it there. And that's the problem.
Mm-hmm.
This might be a situation where you would do a limited use permit, not penalizing this owner and requiring that it be taken down when she leaves. I don't know. I don't know. I guess if this wasn't such a new property, I would have, that sort of sways more.
Doesn't it?
In the older ones, you kind of know when we would grandfather them in because they were under existing zoning that has these different reasons. But I guess what really bothers me is that whole sequence that's been put into the record of the certificate of occupancy following the building of the structure. And nobody catching it at that time.
I can pull this.
And if there was no fence there, it would have been pretty obvious that the structure existed. And if you look where that subdivision's developed, or that area, thing stands out like crazy.
But yet, a mistake by an inspector, in the same way, you could take it, here's the way I used to look at it, or still look at it. If the zoning administrator had a plan reviewer who made a mistake, that still doesn't authorize that mistake to be, you could go back later, and I think there have been these cases occasionally where it was really obvious that a mistake was made. It still does not give the zoning administrator the authority to say that this thing is okay. And the other piece of it is, there's also the line of, might a plan reviewer or an inspector be acting untoward?
Oh, obviously.
Montgomery County, Maryland case. Now, so it then falls to this board, fortunately or unfortunately, to be able to grant some relief depending upon the situation. Sometimes we're going to run into ones where we're approving things that were built without a permit or without permission in places where, they would never be placed and under any circumstances.
And to your point, I recall cases where there was a mistake in the office where we did exercise authority to grant that after the fact, rather than make the people tear things down.
But usually in those cases, the neighbors are all in support. And
Not always.
really? Any? Well, there was that one with the records that they wanted to keep for 5, but that was a temporary use.
Which is part of why I think I was drawing on the temporary nature.
Right.
And requiring her to take the quote-unquote financial hit, if you will, before she sells the property, because the value of the property will definitely increase. During her occupancy and use, she could take advantage of it, but before the next owner takes possession, we could require it to be taken down, so that it's not a forever ongoing violation.
If this were a statue, would that be an accessory structure as well, because it's solid on the ground?
I suppose it would be. Yeah.
So if this were not to be used for its intent, but just be there as a kind of statue kind of thing, it's still art? Yes, art, thank you.
The only authority that we have gotten, and we just got it like 2 weeks ago, for a structure, an accessory structure, to be in the required yard was trellises that just got approved.
Right.
And a trellis doesn't do anything, not really.
Yeah.
So it would be the same, a trellis to me is the same as a statue.
Well, and the trellis,
Doesn't do anything.
the trellis exemption in the new zoning ordinance, which I read carefully because of our large fence trellis, still is limited by the height of the fence. So in this one, since it exceeds the height of the fence, that doesn't help us either.
Yeah, that's true.
Because I did find that interesting that the trellises were approved, but only to the height of the fence. So that 12-foot trellis that they wanted to put in still would not have been.
Oh, that one. Oh, okay.
I'm thinking of statues. Usually the ones you see, like in landscaping, are able to be picked up and moved. They don't have a foundation that's, going to keep it in the ground permanently. I mean, it's possible. I'm sure people do have those. But.
Well, I think of the ones that are like the fountain statues, where they might set them in so the water doesn't push them over.
Yeah.
See, I would be willing to support keeping it there, but it couldn't be used. So that would require a condition that says it wouldn't be used. Which is just, what that does is it negates the having it, yeah, exactly. How would you enforce it is number one. And then, but it would, then you wouldn't have the expense of tearing it down.
When our guys do our Clarendon bar sweep, we might have to send them over to their house on a Saturday night.
Oh, golly.
I have Cliff running up there to grab the final survey and that date from the CO, in case any of you all are interested to see that.
Meanwhile, can we go back to the one that can we table this for a moment?
I was going to say, I think I would be willing to entertain tabling this and pulling off the table the case that we started with.
That's fine with me, or we could
We
defer
do
it.
that?
We could defer this.
Can we table this one and go to the one that we tabled and untable it and work on that, and then come when Cliff comes back?
So they can leave.
Yes, so they can leave. I don't know that.
It might make a difference.
You think?
We might end up with 2-2, which is a denial, as opposed to having a 3.
Oh, 2-2 is a denial?
No, 2-2 is a denial unless you decide to defer.
Probably 3-1 anyway.
Fails.
Exactly. I don't think I've ever seen you all not defer if you had a tie.
We did once.
Didn't you?
I remember there were one time. And I think it had been one that had come back and back. And
Well, do we want to see if we can get a motion, or do we want to put it off until Cliff comes back with? Scott,
Why don't we table and take the other table off the table and let them go home?
all right. I move that we table this item and take the previous item, oh, I think Judy did.
Yeah, I think Judy has to move to take it off the table.
I'm not positive, I just have tabled, I don't say who tabled it.
First one off?
Yeah, did you?
I didn't write who did it. Everyone else I have.
Okay, so I move that we take V dash,
Actually, probably let's let Ms. Craven go first and move to put this one on the table, and then we can take the other one off.
So I move that we table item V-10926-14-UP-1 till,
Just leave it there.
just
and then-
table it, yes.
Second.
Been moved and seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay.
Okay.
Now,
move that V-10862-13-UP2 be taken off the table.
second? Or no?
Or no.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. In case we needed to vote on that?
Did we have a second on that?
Yeah.
It was great. Okay, great, thank you.
I did come up with a plan. My printer was running out of ink, and I didn't have any 11 by 17
Okay.
So I have the rear elevation, but it's been cut off. I did email it to you from my computer as a PDF.
What you can do with the floor plan is draw the window in that room. You just want to draw the two cuts and label it a window.
It's on the floor plan.
Yeah, that's the old one, right?
Yes. But the architect, when he did a change order for us to get something prettier than that, took the window out. Right, but there was a change order.
That's what I was asking, and that's what started. I think whatever was reproved, it's okay.
Yeah,
And especially because
yeah.
my view is as long as it's not.
That's the originally approved plan now,
And it's just, because sometimes we add,
approved in 2013.
Right, that I amend.
so as long as we just have it in the plans, we're good. But I don't want you to try and do it and not have it in the plans correctly.
Is that the same? I mean, I can just have you draw the window on the existing one right now.
Okay,
Just make it easier, so you have the.
here. Oh,
Because that may have some difference from this that may get you in trouble when you come through permit. You just draw the window in here.
okay.
It's probably the easiest thing to do.
Does it need to be drawn in on the plan as well?
Mr. Knoxon?
Yes.
Mr. Russell, will you ask the question again?
Be drawn in on the plan as well?
We have a rear view elevation here that she submitted to us showing the window. And we just need to have her draw it on the floor plan to match this elevation.
Oh, that's where she's drawing, is on the floor plan.
Exactly. Here, I'll pass these to you all. This is the rear elevation they've proposed with the extra window. Fantastic. That'll work.
Hopefully we're better at our jobs than we are at trying to get a garage built. And I apologize for all the time we've taken of Bruce and also of Lord.
As I said, I'm glad that the conversation happened, though. We would hate to have to make you come back and reapply because you go to put in that window and find out you don't have it on the plans.
It's drawn there, like it says window.
Perfect.
We have had neighbors call in and say, hey, wait up, there was supposed to be a door there. And we've had to enforce that, so.
Or they're putting in a round window, and the plans that we saw was a square window.
Tiny window.
I know.
Make sure that's reflected on the building permit as well.
And in terms of the record, let me just be clear, Ms. Craven and I had a conversation, and I think this was a follow-up of the conversation that I'd had with Drew earlier. Since this does not affect the setbacks in any way or any other issues, I don't think there's any problem with the advertisement, with adding the window, especially A, because it was originally advertised and there were no complaints when you had the first hearing, and B, because it doesn't affect the setbacks in any way. We often will have, not often, but occasionally we have the need to say, you need to put a window in a property that was not advertised, and that is not an issue that would require any re-revision of advertising. So we would feel comfortable, as long as it's on the drawings that's submitted and that's approved, that you would be able to move forward. without having to go through and re-advertise. Does the staff concur in my analysis?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. In light of that, having looked at the window addition to the plans, is there a motion?
Motion. I move that the Board of Zoning Appeals adopt the attached resolution granting use permit V-10862-13-UP-2, subject to the conditions listed in the resolution, with the drawings as amended at our meeting.
Second. It's been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
The motion carries 4-0. Good luck with your garage.
And here's Cliff, just in time.
All right.
From Ms. Craven.
Oh, I move we take item V-10926-14-UP-1 off the table, on the table, back on the table.
I guess the only other question would be, I think in informally polling my colleagues, it looks like there would probably be I'm not sure. Mr. Russell, do you have any inclination of which direction you're going in this matter?
I wanted to hear what was going to come on the floor.
Well, I think partly what the chair is perceiving is if it is a matter of 3-1, then there would be no reason to defer this until Mr. Smith were back. But if there was any inclination of 2 board members to consider positively granting the request, then it would be in the interest of the board, potentially of the applicant for sure, to defer the matter till Mr. Smith could also weigh in on the issue. I kind of heard from my left that I would have 2 noes, so. And I guess I'm indicating that the chair would not be inclined to vote no, so.
Mhm. Well, I think this is really tough. It's a shame to have to tear it down, but I think you have 3 no's.
So what do we have from?
But we haven't heard a motion yet.
I know.
No.
We're waiting for this.
We're also, I believe the staff also may have some additional input, that is with regard to the previous use permit that was discussed as part of the case of what we've granted.
Yeah. We don't know when the...
The certificate of occupancy.
But still. All right, these are the certificates of occupancy. It was issued on July 31st, 2012. And then we have the final survey from January of 2012. And this is what would be the final review for the plan reviewer, as well as to get the CO approved. Now, the CO inspection would have had to happen too, and they have to go out and look at the survey while they're on the property. So this is the survey we had, which does not show it.
And that would be in keeping with the testimony we received tonight that the structure was not built until May.
Exactly. Are these all different ones?
The final survey wasn't provided in January to the county. So I guess the only other reason potentially to defer it in terms of anything that might change is if there was something in the closing documents which had the survey on it that transmitted it in terms of the deed that the applicant received, that would be different than this. But I don't know. Did you know?
Either that or survey didn't do what he was supposed to do.
David Ziegler.
Just for your information, why don't I provide you a copy? Oh, did they give you one? Do you have a copy of the certificate of occupancy as well? Okay. As the chair is looking at this and as the information's been provided, it does seem to indicate that the client was or should have been on notification by looking at the documents that the county had at the time that the development was made, that the structure was not part of what was approved by the county. So, and I've heard no evidence to indicate that that you would have been. Chair is still in a position of waiting for a motion. The language.
Is this the right one? I move the Board of Zoning Appeals adopt the attached resolution denying use permit V-10926-14-UP1.
Second.
Thank you.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? No. So the motion carries 3-1.
Just if I may address the board, I haven't been before you before, but you guys run a fantastic meeting, and you're very straightforward with everything that you presented. I used to be the chair of the Falls Church BZA, and I don't think we ever did as good of a job as you do.
Oh, thank you very much.
Verbalized to the owners before you very well. You explained the process very well, and although I don't agree with your decision, and hopefully we'll appeal it, I just think that you run a really good meeting, and I just wanted to say so.
Thank you very much. We appreciate that. Mr. Knoxon, I believe we have one more series of items for the evening.
We have 3 deferral requests for the South Queen Street properties. I'll read them out real quick. First case is V-10905-14-UP-1. And this is a carryover case. This is a use permit request by Arlington Designer Homes Incorporated to permit a setback of 6.1 feet to the air conditioning unit instead of 8 feet as required, 7.4 feet to the stoop, and 9 feet to the eave, and 10 feet to the wall of the new home from the rear property line instead of 25 feet as required, 8.8 feet to the stairs, 11.6 feet to the eave, 12.7 feet to the wall of the home from the South Queen Street right-of-way instead of 25 feet as required. And this is for the construction of a new 2-story detached single-family home with a front stairway, a covered rear stoop, covered front stoop, and rear air conditioning unit. It's in the R5 zoning district on the premises known as 1021 South Queen Street. The request is to defer to the November 12th, 2014 hearing.
Before we do that, I did have one question. In regard to the air conditioning unit, the revisions to the code that we received, doesn't it speak to something about the air conditioning units?
They did not change the air conditioning units.
I thought they did.
Go ahead.
What they did was codify that stormwater planters that are above the ground can have the same setback as air conditioning units. Generators, pool, what do you call them, pool motors, and things like that. Those kinds of equipment are now called out that can have the same setback as air conditioning units, but they didn't change air conditioning units.
'Cause I knew I read something about the air conditioning units in that, and so I'm like, oh,
They didn't change
did
those.
they fix the problem that we
No,
were
they
having?
just let everything else that sits out there like that be like air conditioner units.
Yeah. See, this is why I wish they would have let us know they were making changes, because we might have recommended making the change. But, oh well. Okay.
Well, we definitely gave them your input. Ms. Craven gave us a few pointers over the last year and a half, so we took those notes and brought them to them. We tried that. Corner lots and porches, we pretty much failed on that. We got some relief on the porches on the corner lots, which is good. So.
I want to continue that for a moment and after we finish this. So the recommendation is to adopt the resolution deferring the subject use permit to November 12th, 2014. Do I have a motion?
So move.
Moved by Ms. Craven, seconded by
Second.
Ms. Freshman. All in favor? Aye. Okay, so that's been moved. Next matter?
Case is V-10906-14-VA-1. This is also a carryover case. This is a variance request by Arlington Designer Homes Incorporated to permit a total lot coverage of 53.6% instead of 45% as permitted. It's for the construction of a new 2-story detached single-family home with a covered front stoop and stairway and a covered rear stoop. This is in the R5 zoning district on a premises known as 1023 South Queen Street.
And the recommendation is to adopt the resolution deferring the subject variance to the November 12th, 2014 BZA hearing.
I move the Board of Zoning Appeals defer the variance V-10906-14-VA-1 to the November 12, 2014 hearing.
Second.
Been moved by Ms. Freshman, seconded by Ms. Craven. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries 4-0. And the final case, Mr. Noxon?
And final case is V-10906-14-UP-1. It's also a carryover case. This is use permit request by Arlington Designer Homes Incorporated to permit a setback of 6.1 feet to the air conditioning unit, 7.4 feet to the stoop, and 9 feet to the eave, and 10 feet to the wall of the new home from the rear property line, instead of 25 feet as required, 4 feet to the eave, and 5 feet to the wall of the new home from the right side property line, instead of 10 feet as required, 10.8 feet to the stairs, 11.5 feet to the covered front stoop, 13.5 feet to the eave, and 14.5 feet to the wall of the home from the South Queen Street right-of-way instead of 25 feet as required. And finally, an aggregate side yard of 12.5 feet instead of 18 feet as required. This is for the construction of a new two-story detached single-family home with a front covered stoop with stairs, a covered rear stoop, and a rear air conditioning unit. It's also in the R5 zoning district, premises known as 1023 South Queen Street.
And the recommendation is to adopt the attached resolution deferring the subject use permit to the November 12th, 2014 BZA meeting. Mr. Russell?
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Russell,
Second.
seconded by Ms. Freshman. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. The motion carries. Let me just, before we adjourn, move to adjourn.
Do the minutes?
Oh, minutes, that's right. Let's do the minutes.
Close the meeting. I move approval of the minutes of the Board of Zoning Appeals meeting held on Wednesday, June 11th, 2014.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Abstaining, me.
Any abstention? Ms. Craven is abstaining. The motion carries 3-0.
Move to adjourn, unless what you need to talk about is...
I guess my only question, and I wanted to put on the record, was what mechanism there is to notify the Board of Zoning Appeals when the county board is considering zoning changes. Because I do think it's important, well, I don't know that it's important. I think it could be helpful if we do weigh in on some of the issues that they're addressing. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Knox. Thank you, Mr. Knox, and we appreciate that you would let us know. I do know you let us know when there's circuit court decisions, when there are other issues affecting potentially what we're doing. So, and I think anytime there's state law changes that you become aware of, you keep us very well informed as a secretary. But I think it would be helpful for us to also be informed of the county's actions. And I did hear there was a second round of changes coming. And there were a couple of issues that, I know over the year and a half, besides what Ms. Craven has talked about, that we've talked about, one of which is in terms of some of these PUDs or other things, granting authority to the zoning administrator to actually make changes so that we wouldn't have to do use permits, or, a couple of other things. So maybe if we could look at those, and if the fellow board members have any additional items that the staff should be presenting, that we present that to the staff.
I guess this time, Mr. Knox can send you the packet after the fact, but from now on, we'll have to send you the packet as it's going through review, proposed changes.
I think that would be helpful, and I know at least the clerk of the court was shocked to hear that we had not, who appoints and swears us in, that we had not received the notices before weigh in on them, since as the experts within the county, there would be some thought under the Arlington way that we would have weighed in. So to the extent.
A couple of points, if I may, on this. Is there still mailing of public notices done to some people by the county board office or the planning commission?
The county board office doesn't mail them. The planning office actually mails the public notice for the county board hearings.
To
They do them for ours as well.
interested citizens who get every one, or just simply to
Adjacent
affected
property
properties?
owners, affected property owners, adjacent property owners.
Okay. That doesn't, we could be on that list for one thing. The other thing is that we should be informed at least by The first public notice for the Planning Commission hearing, which gives both, because anybody participating should participate with the Planning Commission and the County Board. That's required. Both are required for zoning ordinance amendments. And that gives anybody interested basically a month before the County Board, 2 weeks and 2 weeks, to generally to look into it.
I wonder if we're able to set that up with Bonnie or somebody.
We could probably try to set that up with Bonnie, or we would just have to take it upon ourselves.
Yeah, do our own.
Me, Drew, and Cliff to do it.
And I don't know why with this group, an email wouldn't be sufficient.
No, I think it'd be totally sufficient.
Yeah.
I even read those things on my email.
Well, I've gotten emails I've gotten on some lists that I intended to receive by email all public notices of the county board. I only seem to get them for work sessions, these obscure meetings that aren't necessarily mean anything to me. Rather than the ones that I wanted to get, which were the full county board meetings and all of their meetings. Just email me the public notice.
Or any of you
I have enough history to be able to read a public notice and know what's going on pretty well.
Yeah, and I get the same thing. I'm on the legal notice, sort of, so it's when the Sunshine Act notices come from the county board. But the school board, for example, has an email that I get. So whenever I get the weekly school board agenda, and again, I can look at that. And I thought there was, as you, Mr. Russell, was a similar email list for citizens to have from the county board, so that you could look at those things in advance and then. I mean, as opposed to what I do now, which is on occasion I'll turn on the television and see what it is they're talking about, but it would be nice to know in advance of what the county board's looking at.
What we could do, since the county board agenda, we do it, but the PC agenda, Giselle does it. We could coordinate between you, Cliff, and Giselle to get the PC agenda and the county board agenda to you. It's a matter of email.
That would be wonderful.
It's a matter of email.
And we send them out to civic associations as well.
Right.
So if you're involved in that, you may see it come across that way.
Right. Only the civic association chair gets it, so.
Yeah, and they tend to just give it to you.
But we can take it, we can do that, because we generate the county board. Right. We can do that. We can do that.
Oh.
We kept fighting to get rid of the county board agenda. The county board notice, but we lost. We still do it.
I was going to say, it doesn't seem like it would be your responsibility, but as long as it is, we would love to
And
receive
the
them.
BZA notification is sent off to somebody in planning to do, not on our floor. So it's kind of crisscrossing.
That is pretty crazy.
But once we finalize the notices, we can just, when we send the final notice to the board office, we can send you one.
That comes from legal notice only being required on property or rezoning. They're only way back.
Yep.
So planning got it then, and once you get it, you don't get rid of it.
Right, you don't get rid of it.
That's true. Well, the
Zoning administrator got it to do it. The zoning administrator, the deputy zoning administrator did it for years. When you were there, I did it. And we never got rid of it. Now we just got, Cliff does it. The only thing we did get is the planners now write their own ads, but we still coordinate it.
Wow. So, motion to adjourn?
I move we adjourn.
Then I'm going to take Ms. Freshman on that one, because I was taking Ms. Craven most of the evening. All in favor?
Aye.
Not too bad. Thank you.